It had been a long week. I just pulled into my driveway around 8 p.m., feeling the weight of a few days spent in Austin endless zoning meetings, coffee, and a broken hotel AC. I was ready for nothing more than a cold shower, a drink by the pool, and most importantly, some peace. The kind of peace you only get when you're in your own home, the place you've worked hard for, the one place you can call your own. But tonight, peace was nowhere to be found. As I made my way down the driveway, I couldn't help but notice something off. Two bright plastic signs were staked into the gravel saw HOA pool access, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. HOA. Saw now, that was strange. I'd lived here for years, saw this saw house, the one I specifically bought because it wasn't under HOA control. I knew I didn't need to worry about that nonsense. But there they were, clearly staked down like they had some claim over my property. I glanced up, and that's when I saw the lock on the front gate. Not mine. A big silver lock, with a chunky chain wrapped around it. For a moment, my stomach dropped. I thought maybe I'd been robbed. But then I noticed something worse: footprints in the dirt. Lots of them. Flip-flops, sneakers, and a stroller. A tire rut leading right into the yard. I didn't even bother with the gate. I figured if I wasn't going to get in that way, I'd go around to the back. Through the SARE VYC path behind the garage. I squeezed through the side access and walked up to my backyard, only to be hit with the sounds of what I can only describe as utter chaos. Kids shrieking, a Bluetooth speaker blaring pop music, the loud, wet slap of feet on the pool deck. My stomach turned. I rounded the corner, and that's when I froze. There had to be 30 or 40 people in my backyard. Kids cannonballing into the pool like they were at some kind of vacation resort. Two grown men were grilling hot dogs on my gas burner next to the pool bar, and someone had dragged out loungers from my storage unit. Now those loungers were covered in wet towels, half-eaten food, and discarded paper plates. And then I saw it. A laminated sign taped to my fence. HOA Pool, enjoy responsibly. I stood there for a second, trying to process what I was seeing. I was in my backyard, and there were so many strangers treating it like their own personal playground. A woman I didn't recognize waved at me with a plastic cup of white wine in her hand. "Oh, hi. Can you grab more ice from the back fridge?" I didn't answer her. Instead, I turned on my heel and walked back through the yard, back through the side yard, and into the house. Inside, everything was just as chaotic. The thermostat had been turned up by 5 degrees. The slider to the patio stood wide open, and there was actual sand tracked across my hardwood floors. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and dialed the sheriff's non-emergency line. 20 minutes later, 2 deputies arrived. I met them at the front gate, unlocked it with my own key to show them how it wasn't the same lock. I led them through the mess. And just as we reached the pool, there she was, Karen, the HOA president, looking like she'd stepped straight out of a brochure, wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat and a polo with the HOA's logo, clipboard in hand like it was a weapon. "Officers," she said sweetly, "no need for alarm. This is a sanctioned community event." I let out a laugh that probably sounded more like a choke. "This is my property," I said. "Private, not part of the HOA. Never has been." Karen didn't even flinch. She handed one of the deputies a printed packet. According to Section 8, Subparagraph C of the Whispering Trails Emergency Resolution, the HOA board voted unanimously to allow temporary community use of underutilized recreational space due to the closure of our public pool. I stared at her. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just took a deep breath and then forced it out. "You broke into my property." Karen blinked once, then sweetly replied, "No, we activated a right of access for communal welfare. It's temporary, just until repairs are done." Behind her, I saw a kid launch himself off my DVYing board. I wasn't sure if I could hold it together anymore. I looked at the deputies. "You need to note this incident, and I suggest the HOA council read my deed." I didn't give Karen another glance. I walked back to the house, fists clenched, feeling the rage bubbling up beneath my skin. Welcome home, right? I wasn't sure what bothered me more, the fact that the HOA had the audacity to come in like this, or that Karen, who had been trying to muscle her way into my life for years, thought she could just do whatever she wanted. 3 years ago, she tried to buy my property. At the time, I thought she was just some businesswoman looking to expand, but the offer she gave me? A 7-figure check, a seat on the HOA board. She wanted my land for a new development project. The gym down the hill, the one my father had built back in the day for Olympic athletes? She wanted that too. She tried to convince me it was for the greater good. I politely told her no. I wasn't selling. That gym, that pool, this land, it was my father's legacy. It only got worse from there. I started getting letters from the HOA about things like trimming my shrubs, adjusting my mailbox height, petty stuff. I laughed it off, but it felt more like harassment than anything else. Karen didn't know how to take no for an answer, and this latest stunt was clearly her payback. By the next morning, I was on the phone with my lawyer, Gail. She knew the property lines better than anyone. I wasn't even technically adjacent to the Whispering Trails neighborhood, so the HOA would have to annex land just to have any sort of legal claim. It was a mess, and I had to document everything. I also learned something else that day. The gym, which the HOA had been using for years, was mine. Not one of their residents had paid a dime for using it. It was my land, my property, and I had the deed to prove it. I drove down to the gym later that afternoon. Cars were parked outside. The HOA banner was still taped across the glass front door, but when I walked inside, the trainer there just shrugged. "Hey, you must be with the maintenance team. Karen said we could keep using the space during construction." "Construction?" I asked, jaw tightening. "She told you that?" The trainer nodded, clearly confused. I walked out, tore down the banner, and stuffed it in the trash. As I did, something inside of me shifted. That was it. I wasn't just going to let this happen. I was done. The next day, I came home to find the pool gate had been forced open. There were kids in the pool, parents lounging, like they were at a country club. Karen was lounging in a chair with a mimosa in her hand, like she owned the place. And that's when I saw him, little boy, floating face down in the deep end. I didn't hesitate. I dove in, pulled him out, and started CPR. By the time I got him breathing again, the pool was silent. People started apologizing, avoiding my eyes. Karen just stood there, frozen. The boy's mother was crying, thanking me. The next few days were quiet. I thought the lesson would be learned. But then, the motion sensors started going off at midnight. I checked the cameras. There she was, Karen, bolt cutters in hand, breaking into my property again. The next day, I knew it was time. I called my lawyer. It was time to fight back. We went to court. I presented the footage of Karen cutting the chains, damaging my property, and the emails she'd sent plotting to steal my land. Her defense? Community need. But the judge wasn't HOA-ing it. She ruled in my favor. The HOA was dismantled. Karen was fined, put on probation, and banned from ever VYing on an HOA board again. But that wasn't the end. The real VY Tory came when I reopened the gym. I renamed it Saw the Blake Legacy Athletic Club Saw in honor of my father. I upgraded the place, put in solar panels, and offered memberships. The HOA wasn't allowed near it anymore. And for those who'd stood by me like the family whose child I saved, I gave them lifetime passes. The neighborhood was different now. People painted their houses whatever color they wanted. They added personal touches. No more HOA control. As for Karen, she faded away. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a garden center, probably still trying to climb her way back into power. But for me, the fight was over. I had my peace back. My property was mine again, and I made sure the whole world knew it. A big, bold sign went up on my driveway, "Saw private property, not HOA land." Never was. Saw, and as I stood there, watching people slow down to read it, I knew this wasn't just about property lines. It was about taking control, standing up for what's right, and showing that sometimes, VY Tory doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes, it just comes with silence. Now, what do you think? Should I have taken a different approach? Was I right to stand my ground? Leave a comment, and let me know your thoughts on this whole situation.